This episode was recorded during a time in the pandemic where you were allowed to have people in your house. Welcome to Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, the podcast that deals with all things mental health. We talk to professionals, survivors, and loved ones about their sometimes informative, sometimes uplifting, and sometimes tragic stories. I'm your host of the show, Todd Rennebaum, advocate, recovering addict, experienced sufferer of depression and anxiety, and author of the children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. This episode, I talked to a young lady named Megan Burstyk. She is a very, I'll say brave and strong young lady. She's an excellent mother and a very hard worker. It's kind of what I got out of our conversation. Megan and I happen to know each other for years on Facebook. We had never actually met, though. We kind of are from the same town, same area, kind of. We know a lot of the same people. She even lived across the street from me for a while, but we never really met or talked. Her story is she lost her father when she was young to suicide, and then she lost a sister, then a brother, then another sister to suicide. She's now 32 years old, and she talks about all the circumstances leading up to their deaths and what it was like growing up. Little warning, some people might be triggered. There is talk of suicide and abuse, so just be aware of that. There might be the odd swear word as well, so earmuffs. Megan and I sat down for a cup of coffee. We socially distanced. At one point in the recording, you might hear a refrigerator coming off and on in the background a little bit, but don't worry about that. Anyway, I hope you like this conversation and this episode. Without further ado, Megan Burstyk. It's lovely to meet you for the first time, finally.
Nice to meet you too.
I guess, where would you like to start? Maybe talk about your dad and how old you were when you lost your dad.
Okay. I don't really have much to say about my dad because I didn't know him because I was like so little. I was only like 2 or 3 when he took his life. Yeah, I don't have.
What was it like growing up without him and knowing how he took his, or knowing how he passed away?
I don't, because like when I was growing up, I knew he took his life, but I didn't like grasp like the whole entire concept of it until I was much older, and I hadn't known anybody else that had taken their life, so I couldn't really compare it to anything. Okay.
So I didn't
feel like I felt a void, but like not, I didn't feel like a huge loss because I just don't ever remember having my dad.
Did you have older siblings that knew him?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And, okay, so then how old were you when, was it Lacey that passed away? Okay.
When Lacey passed away, I was 18.
Oh, okay. Yeah. For some reason I thought she was the oldest.
No.
Okay. Do you want to describe that and what the circumstances around it? And
honestly, we didn't who expects it, but she, I don't know, she was just out one night and me and her had been fighting about who had mom's car, and I remember just hearing her come home, not late, like 10:30, and on her way back down to her bedroom, she must have, because that was like when cell phones were just coming out, so I feel like she didn't have one, but I think she did. She unplugged the phone from the jack and like went downstairs and like like, how graphic do you want me to be? Like, do you want me to say?
It's completely up to you.
And she hung herself, and we like, yeah, so we just, it was shocking, obviously, because like we didn't expect it. And yeah, I don't know. She just seemed fine. Like, she was just like super happy, always outgoing, like had a good job. She was supposed to work the next day.
So she didn't have like mental health issues leading up to this, or wow, I'm assuming
she
must
definitely
have, but...
like she did. I think she had issues that were like more than what she let us know. Like, I feel like her growing up without our dad was harder on her, because she like kept a journal, and there was lots of stuff in there about, you know, growing up without a dad and how it affected her. So I feel like she really struggled with that, but she didn't talk about it to us about that.
Was there, I don't know how graphic or how, I don't know about...
I'm comfortable talking about
any?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're not comfortable at any point, just let
Yeah.
me know, and this is completely the ball's in your court here. Was there any kind of trauma in the family that obviously there was if growing up with that father that had...
When we were younger, my mom was married to a man that sexually abused us and physically abused us. And that was like really rough on both of us. She kind of like went like the partying route. She was in high school, so it's not like she was partying like out of control. She was still going to school, like was really good in school. Showed up for work. She was just like a normal teenager, but she like went that opposite direction where she like went outgoing and needed to be around people. And I kind of like, I didn't go out in high school. I just like worked and like came home. And so I know that really affected her too, because we were really young when that happened. And like we had to go see doctors, and like we were in court for it. And I know that really bothered her too, having to like live through that and like remember that. And
right.
I feel like back then though, you didn't like really know where to go for, like, we went to counselors and stuff like that, but it's also hard to find a counselor that like you can relate to, that you feel comfortable opening up to about that kind of stuff. And I don't think she ever found her person.
Yeah, I know what that's like. Well, not like trying to find a good counselor and stuff. Where were you guys living then?
We were in Yorkton then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that obviously then added like whatever traumas you had before from losing your dad, the abuse, and now losing a sister. I'm assuming that added trauma to the whole family even more so.
Yeah.
So how old were you when your brother passed away?
Dana, I was...
And your dad's name was also
My
Dana,
dad's name
right?
was also Dana,
Okay.
and my brother's name was Dana. That was 6 years ago, so I would have been 26 or 25. 26. Whatever. So yeah, I was 26 when that happened. With my brother Dana, he suffered a lot. He kind of like closed himself off from the world. You never really think that that's going to be what they do. Like, you obviously know that they're like going through something, they're struggling, so you just like offer to what you can. And I feel like for men it's different. They're not so open about their feelings, you know?
Yeah.
So he was always a quiet kid, never had much to say, kind of like kept to himself, taught himself how to rebuild motors and engines and everything. And so that's kind of what he did. And one night he had sent out a text message to all of us, like saying, you know, I want all my stuff to go to our younger brother. And I was at work, and I just said, like, I'm at work right now, like I really can't do this. But in the meantime, I had called my sister and my mom, and they were out looking for him. And when I got off work, nobody hadn't heard from him. So I went out looking for him. And I had my little guy with me. And we just drove around for like an hour, 2 hours, and we were on our way home, and we had just walked in the door, and my sister had called me, and they said that they had found him. And he was in his truck, and he like carbon monoxide poisoned himself is what it was, but he was like still alive. But when they got him to Indian Head Hospital and like tried CPR and stuff, he had passed away. But he like struggled a lot too. Like I feel like he struggled without having our dad. He was dating a girl, and they were kind of like going through ups and downs, and they had broken up, and they were still kind of seeing each other, but she ended up eventually getting a new boyfriend, and that just kind of like, I feel like that was his downfall, like his spiral.
How old was he?
He would have been like 20. No, he would have been 23, 24.
Was he abused as well?
He said no.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't. So yeah.
So, at any point did your sister or brother ever try to get help through the mental health system in Saskatchewan at all, or?
I don't think so. Like, my mom would like send us to counselors and stuff like that. And I remember at one point we were seeing a counselor in Indian Head at the hospital. But I just remember my sister just didn't want any part of it. Like, I think I was like that too. We just didn't, it wasn't comfortable for us. I think we found more comfort in talking to like our best friends about it than there was.
Right.
But I mean, they don't have the tools or, you know, but yeah, we were pretty young then.
Yeah. That's kind of the problem after I think it was after my suicide attempt. I started seeing someone in Indian Head, and it was like, there's no options. It's like, it's this lady, or you have to drive to the city 4 times a week.
Exactly.
And yeah, I didn't quite feel that lady, and she knew people that were involved in my story and stuff. I was like,
yeah, it's so, no, it's really, when you live in like a small community like that, and that's like your option.
They're only there once a week or once every 2 weeks, because she would cancel sometimes too and stuff. Yeah. I don't know if it's any better or not, but so then obviously that added even more trauma to your family. Actually, I think it was around that time where I think I contacted you about possibly interviewing you for a documentary that I was kind of working on then, because I thought your story was insane then. Yeah. But then since then you've lost another sibling.
Yes. My sister Sarah, she, you know, she had a rough upbringing. Her dad was not in the picture. I know she kind of always felt like the black sheep of the family.
So you had different fathers? Yeah. Okay. She was,
physically abused by that man that my mom was married to. She went partying. She dropped out of school, really didn't have a job. She was into drugs. She never seen a counselor, I think when she was little maybe, but as we grew up, she never seen anyone. And she struggled like big time, and adding drugs and alcohol into it, I feel like made it so much worse for her. She couldn't really see the clear picture. But she had been out partying the night before, and I think that she was like just kind of coming down and was like really in her feelings. And that was on December 23rd, and she hung herself that evening. And like again, it was over a failed relationship, and you kind of just wish that like you could tell your siblings that like it gets so much better, that there's like so much,
this is temporary.
It's so temporary.
Yeah.
That it's not the end all to life. Like there's so much more to it.
That's, I don't know if there's anyone else on earth that's lost as many people as you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what keeps you going?
I have my kids, obviously. I have 2 boys, and I just, like, I have mental health issues too, but I have a great counselor. I was on medication for when I needed it, and I'm not anymore. Yeah, like my kids. I just can't imagine not being here and watching them grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you only get one mom.
Yeah.
So.
Have you had any issues with addiction at all in the past? Like you said, your sister Sarah was kind of struggling.
When my brother passed away, I like partied constantly, and I had started doing drugs, and there was one night that I almost overdosed, and like my mom was living across the street from me at that time, and she just had a feeling that she needed to come and check on me, and thank God she did, because I wouldn't have made it. And I woke up 3 days later in the hospital, and all my people were there, and I just was just like, I never want to see this again. I don't want this to be like the circumstances. And I packed up all of my stuff, and I moved away from Indian Head, and I'm better. Like, I don't do drugs. I just am a better person. Like, I started seeing a counselor after that. Had to get new friends.
Mm-hmm.
I just completely changed my entire life.
Now you're hooked on fishing.
Now I fish. That's my addiction now.
Well, that's a pretty safe one. I don't think anyone's ever overdosed on fishing.
No.
May have split up some relationships, but yes, addiction and suicidal thoughts and all that. Yeah, it's very interwoven. I can attest to that. Do you don't drink or anything, or?
I do drink.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like socially drinking.
Right.
Yeah,
right. But
it's not like I get up every day and have a drink. If I'm going out to a friend's house or something like that.
Right.
But yeah.
Your mother just passed away recently?
Yeah, like just over a year ago.
So she witnessed all these deaths.
Yeah.
Or she was around during all these. How did she handle all this?
Honestly, being the oldest, I kind of like had to grow up and mature a little bit more. And my mom was a single mom, so I kind of had to step into that role. And the hardest thing,
like since your dad passed, or since always,
just
or since
always kind of growing up, the hardest thing you'll ever see is watch your mom lose 3 of her children to suicide.
I can only.
She, after my sister passed away, she was like fine and she was working, and then my brother passed away, and she could not work. She was just, she wasn't my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got better and she started working again after my sister passed away. But it's the saddest thing to watch your mom go through that. And like, she couldn't even plan the funerals. She just couldn't do it. She wanted no part of it. I don't know, just to see your mom that sad and just crying all the time, and not just like for days or weeks after, for like years, she would just break down and cry. Like, who buries 3 of their children plus a spouse? It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
I can only imagine, but I don't want to imagine, like, being a father. Like, it doesn't matter how my kid would die, I'd have guilt over that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she must have had, I'm sure she must have lived with guilt, not saying that any of this was her fault.
No,
or anything,
but absolutely, because they're your children, right? You wonder, could I have done something different? Why couldn't they come to me and talk to me? There's like probably a lot of things that she did.
Oh, and I suppose the sexual abuse from the other partner to you.
Exactly.
The guilt from having him around your kids.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
What did she pass away from?
She had a stroke. She had a massive stroke, and that night was storming, so Stars couldn't take her, so they couldn't get her to Saskatoon in time. And so she was in ICU in Saskatoon, and they did surgery to remove some of her skull just to deal with the swelling and stuff like that. And we did like everything we possibly could, but eventually she just went brain dead, and that was that. You just don't like, it's just, yeah, if Stars would have been able to get her to Saskatoon, her chances would have been a lot better, the surgeon said. But yeah, it was storming that day.
You think she died of a broken heart?
Well, honestly, I think that like when she could hear us when she was in the hospital, because we talked to her and we'd say like squeeze her hand and stuff like that. But I don't know, yeah, like I just feel like she was so, I don't know, she was so sad.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I mean, I think she hung on for like us kids that were still on this side or whatever, but yeah, it was sad. And I can't imagine like what she must have been thinking when she had her stroke, and like I could talk to her on the phone. Like how scared she must have been. Like, you know, we've already went through all this loss. Like she probably was scared to leave us too, like, you know.
More guilt.
Yeah.
Man. So you have other siblings?
Yes, I have a younger sister, Shauna, and then another sister, Tori, and a younger brother named Caden.
And do you mind me asking how they're dealing with all this?
I would say,
in your perspective?
In my perspective, two of my siblings are taking it really rough, and they are in like some pretty deep addictions right now. And then I would say my other sibling is managing it. She's in a different province, so she's kind of like not around. But I would say they're taking it the worst. They're pretty young to be without a mom. You know?
Right. But not just the mom, like all of it, all the whole...
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think my sister Shauna, we actually went through some of her schoolwork, and when she was little, she was given this task at school, and like, who is your role model, who do you look up to? And Lacey was still alive then, but it was all about Lacey. You know, like I look up to my big sister Lacey, and this is what I love about her, and this is what like I want to be like her for this and stuff like that. So I think it's like hard for us even as siblings to talk to each other about it, but I definitely feel like they struggle with it more than they let on. For sure.
Yeah, I can again only imagine. I wasn't sure if, like, quite often I criticize the mental health system in Saskatchewan. I wasn't sure if this is all people slipping through the cracks or not. So from the sounds of it, it's not. Like, it sounds like, well, somewhat, I guess. Maybe if there was better rural
options.
Yes,
like,
thank you for that word. But yeah, sounds like
I feel like it was just like a subject that you didn't talk about back then, like depression, your mental health. There wasn't, I think we have a lot of room to like grow. We have a lot of places we need to be, and we're not where we should be with people who are suffering from mental health. Like, I just don't feel like there's enough done, and people are being turned away all the time.
Well, what was it, not even a year ago, where the young guy left the hospital and then he was found on the shore of Wascana like an hour later. Yeah. Did you move around a lot when you were growing up?
Yeah. We were like Indian Head, Yorkton, Saltcoats, like Odessa, everywhere.
Why were you moving around so much?
Just my mom. She was married for a few years, and they kind of moved around a little bit, and then they divorced, and then she was a single mom. So we did bounce around quite a bit.
I see. Did that, I don't know, contribute, you think, to some of the trauma? Or not, maybe, well, it's not moving around, I guess not trauma, but... Like
I would say,
consistent.
yeah, I would say our childhood growing up was like I was obviously not ideal. You know, like we didn't like have family vacations, and like, you know, my mom had 7 children. She didn't have time to be one-on-one with us, or, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like we grew up so much different from a lot of our friends.
Could you tell that when you were younger?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Like, my son right now is 7, and when I was 7, I was going to the grocery store to pick up groceries. I can't even imagine sending my child to the grocery store right now at 7. Like, he's actually a 7-year-old, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, his childhood is much different than how I grew up.
At any point growing up, could you tell that your mom was having mental health issues, or?
My mom, when we were younger, I remember my mom working and stuff like that. My mom never drank. Like, she didn't drink to get drunk. Like, I probably count on one hand how many times I seen her drink. But I know she struggled mentally with some of her decisions in life, and just knowing how long she lived that way, a certain lifestyle, you know, with the physical abuse and stuff like that. I remember I was like 11 years old, and her husband at the time were upstairs fighting, and my sister Lacey and I were in the basement, and they had just had like those tiny sliding windows, and it was like under the deck, and it was frozen shut, so we couldn't even get out. But I remember saying to her, I'm just gonna run upstairs and unlock the door. I'm just gonna go get help. Like, he was just like slamming doors. Mom was screaming. My little sisters were upstairs, Shauna and Tori, and they were locked in their room, and I was just like, okay, we got to do something. It was so cold outside, and I just decided, like, I'm going for it. So I ran upstairs, unlocked the door, and was just running down the street with no shoes on, no socks, just in my nightgown, screaming just for somebody to help me. And my mom's husband at the time had caught up to me and grabbed me and put his hand over my mouth and was dragging me home. And I remember kicking and screaming and biting him, and somebody turned their light on, and he dropped me and he ran. And this lady took me into her house and called the cops and like got me all warmed up and stuff. And in the meantime, my mom had run across the street to the neighbors, and he had stabbed her in the head and cut her fingers, and she went back to him even after that. Mm-hmm. So I feel like growing up that way, I contributed to all of, you know, like all of that stuff. And I don't really feel like my siblings talked about that to anyone, you know, like I just feel, but growing up like that, looking back now, obviously it's not normal, but it was unnormal for us. It was our normal, you know, went on for so many years.
And you knew, but you could tell that your family life was different than other people at that moment. Right. Do you think that if your father had passed away, or do you ever think that way, like if Dad hadn't killed himself, then we could have a normal life, we'd be like other families, that was kind of a turning point in your mom's life of chaos?
Absolutely it was. Like, my mom even used to say to me, even my friends knew that, like, that was her first, my dad was her first love. Like, she loved him so much. And I feel like, obviously, if my dad hadn't taken his life, there wouldn't have been, you know, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, you know, but there also wouldn't have been my siblings. Our life would have been a lot different. Like, we wouldn't have lived through that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah. So you do think about that once in a while, but...
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no way that would have been our life growing up with my dad. Like, you know.
What was the circumstances that he took his life? Did he have mental health issues, or was it?
Honestly, I don't even know. I just kind of know how he did it, who found him. I never asked questions, and I'm not close with my dad's side of the family. I don't keep really in contact with them. I was close with my grandma, but that was it.
I knew your grandma Fanny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a
nice.
sweetheart.
She reminded me of my grandma.
Yeah, she was so nice.
So you don't know if he was an addict or anything like that?
I want to say he was an addict. I feel
an alcoholic or whatever.
Yeah, both of those.
Okay.
I just don't know the depth of his addictions. I don't know what he was like at that time, what was going on in their lives at that time. And I didn't have the heart to ask my mom.
Right. Well, if it's any comfort, you can't think that way, that if he was still around, it was ultimately had to happen. So obsess it. I don't know if you obsess, but
I don't obsess about it. Obviously, I think when I was younger, I thought about it a lot more. But I don't think now. Like, I don't sit here and I don't feel sorry for myself and be like, okay, well, if he wouldn't have done this, my life wouldn't have turned out like this.
Do you resent him?
No.
Okay.
I don't resent any of my siblings. You know, they have the stages of grief and everybody grieves different, but I was never mad at them, sad, but never mad at them. I just feel like there just wasn't enough. I mean, it was a shitty childhood, right? Like, yeah. Wow. I don't know what was going on in their heads. They didn't tell me, obviously, or I would have like tried to help more, but
yeah. I know you just want to say like it is what it is, but that sounds what it's an awful is.
Well, you know, the thing is like I think everybody kind of like everybody from around here obviously knows what's happened in our lives and stuff like that. And, you know, they kind of tiptoe around the conversation, or you know, if somebody says a joke or something like that, they kind of get embarrassed or like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I feel like, and I remember when Sarah passed away, it was just like me and Shauna were just like, it was just like we knew what to do. We weren't crying. Like, obviously we grieved her, but it was just like, you know, we're just so used to this. Like, how come this is normal to us? Like, it wasn't a normal feeling, but to us, it was just normal, you know, like we're we've just been through it so much that we're desensitized to it is the word, I guess, which is a weird thing to say, but I mean, I've been through it 3 times that I remember, so I'm kind of just, you know.
That's insane to me. I'm 43 years old. I've never lost anyone close to me before. I mean, I lost a grandfather. He was 85, and, you know, it was like no surprise. You know, it was upsetting and everything, but one of my biggest fears is, because of my mental health issues and stuff, is when I do lose someone like a parent or someone close to me, I don't know what the hell is going to happen to me in my brain, because I'm even scared about my dog dying.
Well, yeah.
You know, it's like, I've been so lucky that way. And so it's just so foreign to me, your story, that, you know, like what you're saying. It's just so, and like they're all, and it's not like, they're all tragic too. It's not like a grandfather where he's on his deathbed for months or something, or they're 90. Yeah. So I don't know how the hell you
I don't know either. And honestly, like, even with my mental health, when my mom passed away, and then that's like when the pandemic hit and I had just had a newborn, I was thinking to myself, like, holy shit, like, what am I going to end up doing? Like, I really had to, like, keep myself together. Because, like, I just, you know what I mean? Like, I could feel kind of myself just wanting to be like, no, I don't want any responsibility. I just want to go, you know? But, yeah, I don't know. I held it together.
Well, you're an incredibly strong lady. And what you were saying before about how some people tiptoe around things, and I didn't know how this conversation would go, to be honest with you, but I'm sincerely curious, and it's amazing how open people actually are about this stuff, because people do the same thing around me. People know me from mental health stuff, and it's like they'll make a joke like, "Oh my God, this song's so depressing. I just want to kill myself."
Yeah.
And then they look at me like, oh, I mean, like, I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, man, it's okay." Like,
Exactly.
it's fine.
And like, even if
I know what I did. Like, it's all right.
Even like if me and my siblings like kind of make jokes or whatever, people are just like, you can't joke about that. And it's like, actually, we can, because we've been through it. Like, if you can't come out on the other side laughing, and like you can't, I'd be lying if I said like, somebody said something, it doesn't like bring up a memory or something. You know what I mean? Like, I did find my sister. So it's
which one?
Lacey. But then so it jogs, like, obviously brings back a memory for me, but we have to laugh. You have to, I'm an open book when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, if you want to know something, I'll talk about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It sounds weird, but you have to have humor
Exactly.
in dark times.
Exactly.
Working in treatment center and going through treatment is like, it's one of the most, I hear more laughter there than I hear like in any other public place.
Absolutely. You have to laugh.
Yeah.
It's like the best medicine.
Yeah. And it's nice that people are concerned and don't want to, they think they're being polite, but would you rather people just be completely open and not like ask you questions openly, or if they make a joke, just not feel uncomfortable that they did it, or?
I don't know. Like, I think the people that are closest to me can joke about it, but like if you just like met me and kind of just heard what it was, like, I don't know. I guess some people it probably bugs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess it's better to be sensitive than just assume that everybody thinks it's funny.
Yeah. Play it safe, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense. Have you spent any time in the psych ward? Or any of your family members before they passed? 'Cause we talked a little bit about if they were in the mental health system at all, but
my siblings weren't. I was.
Okay. Do you think that helped? Maybe if they had gone to the hospital?
I don't think, for me personally, it didn't help me, and I don't think for them it would have
saved them ultimately.
No, it wouldn't have saved them. I feel like when I left, or when I was in there, well, the thing is when I was in the psych ward, I got out of there and was prescribed sleeping pills that if I overdosed on them, I would die.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
How does that make sense? And ultimately, that's how I almost died that night, is because I took all those sleeping pills.
Oh, that's how you almost OD'd, was on your own prescription.
And it's just like, that made no sense to me.
Yeah.
How?
I know.
What?
Yeah. I know.
I don't think
my meds too are antidepressants, and it's like, if you take more than,
yeah, like,
you can die from these.
And you're not in there. I wasn't in there very long, and I mean, you can't tell me that spending a week or 2 weeks in there and I come out and I'm a new person. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't. And like, you met with like a counselor, I don't know, every second day or something when I was in there. But again, you don't get to choose who you're talking to. So if you don't really bond with them or like get a good feeling from them, it's not really overly that helpful, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So now you have kids and dogs and you're happy and healthy?
I am happy.
Question mark? Happy, healthy?
I am happy. When my mom passed away, I did start seeing my counselor again, but she's amazing. And I can definitely like feel when I'm not like feeling 100%. But like, I would say I'm pretty proud of where I am right now and what I have. And my kids aren't growing up even remotely close to how I grew up. Mm-hmm. And my oldest son, who's 7, I always make sure, like, I ask him every day, like, is there anything you want to talk about? Like, I want you to know you can come and tell mom anything. Like, my mom didn't say that. I knew my mom loved me, but she didn't leave that open for me to,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I make sure that my boys, my oldest anyways, is comfortable talking to me about anything.
Yeah.
And his feelings, and like,
that's good.
It's hard to explain to him, a little kid, like, why this person isn't here anymore. You know what I mean? But
Does he remember your siblings? Anyone?
yeah, he remembers
Sarah, for sure, I
Sarah and Dana. And he was pretty young with Dana, but he still will bring up like memories with him.
And of course, Grandma.
Yeah, for sure, Grandma. Yeah.
Yeah, I my wife and I were very much like that with our kids now too, but they were already like 6 and 7 or something like that when I was going through my stuff. But we do it to the point that they're almost like annoyed with us.
I know. Yeah.
Like, no, I have nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Leave me alone.
I was like, okay, it's just I love you. Yes, I know. I love you very much. I'm the oldest guy. Well, he's.
Oh, you just
it's like pulling teeth to get him to talk anyway. So
you want to change it though. Like you want to make sure that the things like you kind of felt like you were lacking when you were going through your stuff is kind of like normal, comforting to them to know it's like, you know, you can come and say it.
Yeah.
You're feeling a certain type of way, come and talk to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
and things are different now. Like I didn't know a single person that killed themselves when I was in high school. Like no towns around, no one, and like I'm sure it happened, but
yeah.
And now it seems like just in Indian Head alone, there was like
multiple. It was crazy. Like same with me. Like I knew my dad, but then Lacey, but then it just seemed like for like a few years there, that there was just like people taking their lives all the time. It was crazy.
I don't know if it was just by circumstance or like what the hell's going on these days, but I don't know. So where do you work now?
I work in Balcarres at the nursing home, and I've been there for 10 years.
Yeah. Is that therapeutic?
I love going to work. Yeah, it's fun.
Is it older people mostly that you see? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're hilarious. Like, they're so funny. The residents there are just so funny.
Yeah. I can imagine. What do you do there?
I'm a care aide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like with them every day. So yeah, work. It doesn't feel like work when I go to work.
Well, bless you. I couldn't do that work. My brother does. My brother and his wife and his kid actually do all that kind of stuff, and it's like, no, I can't do it.
I didn't think I was going to do it either. I was working in a bar when the managers or the care coordinators brother-in-law was the manager of the bar, and he's like, you should go and work in the nursing home. And I was like, I can't work in a nursing home. Like my little heart could not take it. But then now I'm in it like 10 years. So
it was around this part in the conversation that the subject began to change, and we just started talking about the weather and all types of other stuff. Eventually, the conversation did come back around to her abuse, and we'll listen to that now.
Okay, so my sister didn't know that we didn't know about each other being sexually abused, but I didn't if I didn't have to be at home, I wouldn't stay at home. And like my stepdad at the time or whatever, he would just get so drunk he would try and come and take me from my auntie and uncle's houses, and they would never let me go.
Did they know, or they had a feeling, or?
They knew he was abusive. They didn't know about the sexual abuse, so they wouldn't let me go with him. But I told my mom twice, and she actually told my auntie about it. And she just, whatever, she didn't believe me. And then I remember I was at my auntie's house one night, and my mom came over with my sister Lacey, and Lacey had told her it was happening to her too. And my mom believed us. But yeah, it just went on for so long.
So then you guys were in the courts a little bit, and
and then nothing came of it. And he moved away. You don't think he's been back?
And never got charged or nothing?
No.
Huh.
And he was vicious to us. I remember we were moving, and my mom was taking a load of stuff to move, and I was at his parents' house, and she was just going, and he was there with me, and I was crying because I didn't want to be left alone there. He was sexually abusing me, and I was bawling my eyes out. I wanted to go with my mom, but there was no room for me to go. And he took me and threw me over his lap and spanked me so hard he broke all the blood vessels in my butt cheeks. It looked like purple bruises everywhere. It was just, it was crazy.
So how long between you telling your mom, or you and Lacey telling your mom, and her kind of believing you, piecing it together, and like how much longer did she stay with him, or was it like right away? She
No,
just,
it was a
grabbed
couple.
You guys
after I told her, it was like a couple of years till my sister came forward, and then my mom believed her. But he, as we got older, because I spent so much time with my aunties and uncles, he would say, like, if you say anything, I'll kill them. If you say anything, I'll kill them. Well, at that age, you don't know any better, right? Like, you believe what he's saying to you.
Especially because he's so vicious.
Yeah. Well, and like seeing him do that to my mom and stuff.
So once your mom believed you and your sister, how much longer did she stay, or did she grab you guys right away? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and then I like kind of put like a divide in the family, because then when my little sisters kind of grew up, they went and stayed with him. And I mean, then you worry about like, was it happening to them?
Mm-hmm.
But they said that he never did that with them.
Do you think because he was the father of them?
I think so, yeah. I think because we weren't his, it was probably easier for him, right?
I have to say I wasn't sure how this interview was going to go. I wasn't sure if she'd get emotional or how talkative she'd be. If she'd give one-word answers. I really didn't know. It was not how I thought it would go, because that's kind of how I thought it would go. As it turns out, it was almost an uplifting story in a way that she has now living her best life. She's happy with her kids. She's overcome all these tragedies and just living her best life. It was really nice surprise. I just want to thank Megan one more time. Thank you so much for meeting with me and telling me about your story. You're an incredible young lady, and I can't wait to see you and talk to you again sometime. For next week's episode, I am talking to another lovely young lady, Taylor Balfour. She is the editor-in-chief of the Carillon newspaper. That's the University of Regina's student newspaper. She has experienced a bit of tragedy herself. She lost her sister, Rachel, to a drug overdose a couple years ago, and she's going to come and talk to us about her sister, her thoughts on mental health in Saskatchewan, and her thoughts on the opioid crisis in Regina and in Saskatchewan. I promise not every episode is going to be about loss, suicide and overdoses and things, but it just so happens that's a very topical thing right now, especially with the pandemic. Future episodes, I'll feature mental illnesses, borderline personality disorders, eating disorders, so on and so forth, and be talking to survivors about that. So stay tuned. There's lots of great episodes coming up. Before I end the episode, I'd like to thank everyone that left nice comments or likes or thumbs ups or followed the new page, Bunny Hugs and Mental Health on Facebook. And it's a long story why it's called this on Instagram, but Daddy Cries Book on Instagram. And anyone that left comments and ratings on Apple Podcast. I'd especially like to give a thank you to Joanne Broderick for her kind comments, and Sam Tillotson for his review, Heather the Feather, her review, and well, I can't remember what her username was, but my wife left a nice review, so that's good. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe, rate, and review however you are listening to this podcast. It only takes a moment, and it really helps the show out with getting noticed. This episode has been sponsored by Regina Plumbing and Heating. Call 306-585-2000 for all your plumbing, heating, and cooling needs. If you are having a mental health crisis, please call the Canadian crisis number at 1-833-456-4566. In Saskatchewan, the mobile crisis team in Prince Albert is 306-764-1011. In Regina, it's 306-525-5333, and in Saskatoon, it's 306-933-6200. Don't forget to check out my children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. Sometimes Daddy Cries is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Available on Amazon.ca. I'll see you next time. This is Todd Redebaum saying, make your beds and take your meds. Bye.